It had been a grueling day, the kind that drains every ounce of energy from your body. I'd been stuck in an endless late-night meeting, my only companions the dim office lights and the relentless ticking of the clock. Each minute felt like an eternity, stretching out as if time itself were conspiring to keep me trapped in that sterile, oppressive room. By the time I finally left, the streets outside were deserted, shrouded in a heavy, misty rain that blurred the world beyond my windshield. I had hoped to make it home, but the worsening weather quickly dashed those hopes. My usual route home was now a dangerous mess of waterlogged pavement and treacherous curves. The GPS offered no solace, just a barren stretch of road with no signs of civilization. I drove on, my frustration mounting with every mile. The rain pounded relentlessly, creating a cacophony of noise that was as unnerving as it was deafening. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, a gnawing weariness settling in my bones. Just as I was about to give up hope, a flickering neon sign appeared through the curtain of rain. It was an old hotel, its once bright letters now dim and struggling to stay lit. The building looked ancient, a relic from a bygone era, standing alone against the storm. I squinted through the windshield, trying to make out the details. It seemed like a place out of time, untouched by the modern world and forgotten by progress. I hesitated, my eyes lingering on the hotel. The place was isolated, surrounded by nothing but the encroaching darkness and rain. But with no other options and fatigue weighing heavily on me, I pulled into the gravel driveway, the crunch of stones under my tires breaking the silence of the night. The lobby was just as foreboding as the exterior. Dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, it was filled with old, musty furniture and a lingering smell of decay. An elderly woman with deeply wrinkled skin and an unsettlingly vacant stare looked up from her desk. Her eyes were hollow, as if they had seen too much. She handed me a rusty key without a word. I took the key and made my way to my room, my footsteps echoing down the narrow, creaking hallway. A musty door lingered in the air, and the dim light bulb cast eerie shadows on the walls. Despite my weariness, sleep didn't come easily. The storm raged outside, and every creak of the old building seemed magnified in the oppressive quiet. Around midnight, I was jolted awake by a loud bang. The sudden noise shattered the stillness, sending my heart racing. The room lights flickered erratically before plunging me into darkness. The sound of the storm outside was now accompanied by something else, an unsettling scratching noise, like fingernails scraping against wood. I fumbled for my phone, its weak light barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. The scratching continued, a persistent, grating sound that seemed to come from all around. That's when I saw her. In the dim glow of my phone screen, a figure materialized at the end of the hallway. A woman, drenched from the rain, her wet clothes clinging to her skeletal frame. Her hair was a tangled mess, obscuring her face, and her eyes were dark, empty voids. They seemed to pierce right through me, their intensity almost tangible. She stood there, motionless, her presence radiating a palpable sense of dread. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a figment of my exhausted imagination, but the figure remained unmoving and ominous. The lights flickered again and then came back on, but the woman was gone. My heart raced, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. The realization that I wasn't alone in that dilapidated hotel filled me with a primal terror. I needed to get out of there immediately. Ignoring the fact that I left my door wide open, I grabbed my keys and fled down the stairs. The lobby was deserted, and the receptionist was nowhere to be seen. The entire hotel seemed eerily silent, as if it were holding its breath. I bolted outside, the rain having finally stopped. My car was a welcome sight in the darkness, and I practically threw myself inside, my hands shaking uncontrollably as I fumbled with the keys. I turned the key in the ignition and drove away from the hotel, desperate to put as much distance between myself and that unsettling place. The rain had ceased, leaving behind a road slick with water. The mist that clung to the road was thin, almost as if the storm had retreated just enough to give me a brief respite. I was finally beginning to relax, thinking I had escaped the nightmare. As I drove away from the hotel, the darkness of the night seemed to recede with each mile. I hoped that the worst was behind me, the oppressive feeling of dread lifting as the storm eased. The rain had subsided to a gentle drizzle, leaving behind a road slick with water but devoid of any further downpour. The rhythmic thud of the tires against the wet pavement was almost soothing, creating a steady, reassuring sound that helped to calm my racing heart. The headlights cut through the remaining mist, illuminating the road ahead and casting long shadows that danced alongside my car. The streetlights, which had previously been obscured by the downpour, now flickered back to life, their soft glow adding to the sense of normalcy. Just as I began to convince myself that I had left the nightmare behind, a figure emerged, standing ominously in the middle of the road. My pulse quickened and I blinked, hoping that my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. But as the figure grew clearer, my breath caught in my throat. It was her, the ghostly woman who had haunted my every thought since I fled that cursed hotel. Her pale form was eerily still, her dark eyes locked onto mine, as if she had been waiting for me all along. The brief relief I had felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by a cold dread that seeped into my bones. I realized with a sinking heart that no matter how far I drove, I couldn't escape her. She was here again, more real than ever, as if to remind me that my nightmare was far from over. Panicking, I slammed my foot on the gas, trying to drive faster, desperate to put as much distance between us as possible. Then the collision with the tree was sudden and jarring. I was thrown forward, my head slamming into the steering wheel with a violent force. I managed to stumble out of the car, gasping for breath. The world spun as I fought to regain my senses, the pain from the impact radiating through my body. I saw her silhouette through the cracked windshield. She was still there, watching me with those hollow eyes, her presence as chilling as ever. Struggling with a surge of panic, I managed to fumble with the car door and stumble inside. My legs felt like lead, my body trembling uncontrollably from a mixture of fear and adrenaline. I looked around, half expecting to see the woman emerge from the mist once more. But she was gone. The road was empty and silent. I didn't waste any time, ignoring the pain from the crash and the crumpled state of my vehicle. I restarted the engine, the roar of the motor mingling with the sound of my racing heart. With my pulse hammering in my ears and adrenaline surging through my veins, I sped away from the wreckage and the ghostly figure. The mist began to clear as dawn approached, and the road seemed to stretch endlessly before me. The sense of impending doom slowly faded as I put more miles between myself and the haunted hotel. As I approached my house, the comforting familiarity of home began to envelop me. The storm had passed, and the sun's warmth was a welcome contrast to the terror I'd faced. The days that followed brought a sense of relief and a slow return to normalcy, but I couldn't escape the haunting memory of that woman. Despite the safety of my surroundings and the peace that now filled my days, her ghostly image remained etched in my mind. Each time I closed my eyes or drifted into a quiet moment, her hollow eyes and eerie presence resurfaced, a chilling reminder of the night I had barely escaped.